Well, I found out about the Buffalo Project because of George Grasser and a lot of other concerned environmentalists and new urbanists in Buffalo who felt that the New York Department of Transportation was about to do something really bad again. There's been a lot of damage done to Buffalo in the post-war period. Those beautiful Olmsted boulevards that were converted into freeways. The waterfront has been completely covered with grade separated roads so that Buffalo really doesn't have any direct access to its most beautiful asset, which is to be on Lake Erie. And having been the mayor of Milwaukee, another big city on the Great Lakes, people wanted to know if the experiences we had there could be applied here. So I've been to Buffalo off and on since 1972. So I'm very familiar with Buffalo and its politics. And it's a great city, but it's made a lot of very expensive mistakes in the post-war period. And most of those have to do with unnecessarily building roads that blight the city, like the Skyway and like Route 5 highway. In Europe, most of the cities have no freeways inside their outer ring road. And so they don't build them there. If you go to Paris or London or any of the great cities, they tend not to have these roads. Only in America was that really something that happened in a few countries like Brazil. And so what happens is it's a rural form and it tends to undermine the complexity of the city, and it converts the purpose of the road from a multi-purpose road involving movement, culture, social conditions, and economics. You know, the typical road throughout human history has been three things: movement, the social purpose, and the economic purposes. And you can see that on all the great streets in the world. You look at the business streets that are successful in the older parts of Buffalo, like the Delaware District. Those streets serve multiple purposes. When you take a road and ram it through the city and its only purpose is the movement of traffic, that disrespects the city and it undermines the city's economic well-being. You can see it in Detroit, where every freeway that anybody ever dreamed of has been built. They have solved their traffic congestion problem. They don't have traffic congestion in Detroit. They have some in the suburbs, but not in the city. And the city is basically a truck route. You can drive through it. They've got a few sport facilities and the casinos and things like that, but the basic complex economic and social fabric of the city has been largely removed. And that's what you get when you focus on building these roads and cities. And but you know, Buffalo could have a great future. You can correct these mistakes. We took out a freeway in Milwaukee. They took one out in Portland, Oregon. The West Side Highway in New York City was taken out. It's now just a street. And in San Francisco, 2 freeways were removed. In both cases, the city, the area around it came back to life. The Embarcadero Freeway on the waterfront in San Francisco, very similar to Route 5, only it carried much more traffic. It was eliminated, replaced with a surface street, and there's been a huge increase in real estate value, more jobs. There's streetcars on that street now that actually make money. They have so much business. You know, there's no reason why Buffalo can't restore its value. And one of the things that needs to happen is to remove Route 5 as a grade separated road and instead just have it be a boulevard. You can carry a lot of traffic on a boulevard. It doesn't go quite as fast, but it allows you to have better access to the neighborhood that it goes through. Grade separated highway changes all the drive sheds and it creates sprawl. People you know, shop in sort of a 25-minute radius and if you have roads that push everything out into the countryside, then you get a situation like Detroit has, where there's not even one department store in the entire city of Detroit. In fact, there's not one department store in Buffalo. So you have a similar thing. All your retail disappears. If you have a system that's more focused on surface streets and transit and so forth, then you get more, the pedestrian travel becomes more important, and all of the economy tends to be a little more concentrated. If you look at any healthy city in North America, New York, San Francisco, Toronto, they all are places where most of the travel is not on freeways. So it's a choice you can make. I mean, Buffalo can build these freeways and keep the Skyway and make Route 5 bigger and build more freeways maybe. And it can be a great truck route. You know, maybe gradually the city will just turn into sort of a place where you have gas stations and, you know, a place to pick up a bag of potato chips, and that'll be it. And the rest of it will just slowly decay. But I don't think that's a very good future for Buffalo. And I think the New York State Department of Transportation sort of looks at Buffalo as something that's worthless. That's why they build all these big roads through it. Certainly Robert Moses did. He just thought it was a place to drive through, and he ripped out some of those beautiful boulevards that Olmsted had designed, the great landscape designer. So Buffalo could go that path, but it's really a path to economic decline and decay, and you know, it's time for Buffalo to turn that around. It's a beautiful place with the lake, with the beautiful architecture from the past. A lot of it hasn't been torn down yet, so there's a lot to save, and there's new things that could be built. But I think a big problem Buffalo has is it lacks confidence. So it thinks that it has to accept money from the state of New York for things that are bad for Buffalo. You know, so it ends up putting money into this unnecessary road. It tends to spend money on things that really they shouldn't, like subsidizing a sporting goods store that would be here anyway if Buffalo was allowed to come back to life. But when they keep ripping it apart with the big roads and urban renewal and things like that, it doesn't give the city a chance to revive. If you look at the prosperous parts of the city, like the Delaware District and a few of the other older neighborhoods where you have streets where there's successful commercial businesses with living quarters above and very good urbanism, and even parts of the downtown, you can see the potential that could come back. Just like it did in San Francisco. When they tore out the Embarcadero, that was an area where there was empty wine bottles all over the place. There were bums and deteriorating real estate values. When the freeway was taken out and the boulevard put back in, those values returned. In Milwaukee, we had a freeway called the Park East Freeway, about 0.8 of a mile long, elevated freeway on the north side of the downtown. It basically disrupted the ability of pedestrians to go along the river. The real estate next to it was empty parking lots. There was nothing of value. Most of the buildings had been torn down that were there before. Once the freeway was gone, then that whole area around the freeway corridor has come back to life. The part that was actually the freeway corridor is developing a little slower because it's owned by the county government. They refuse to just sell it. They keep hanging on to it and keep coming up with projects where they have to subsidize insiders who hang around the government. But the key is to allow the real estate market to work its magic. And if you plot out the streets and blocks and put in the kind of coding that encourages developers to build in an urban way, you could have the most beautiful waterfront on the Great Lakes. More beautiful than Chicago even. That's what Buffalo could have, and it would be worth so much. It would make Buffalo a much more attractive place so that people in Albany wouldn't be thinking about it as a place to feel sorry for. They should feel sorry for Albany, not Buffalo. Buffalo's beautiful, and it was always a rich city.